Joining us now, Executive Director of Unleash Prosperity, Tim Descher, as well as economist for the American Enterprise Institute, economic researcher Peter Earle. So, Tim, let's start with you. I want to get your reaction to the 1-month exemption on automakers as it relates to Canada and Mexico.
Well, I think that you said it. I don't think they're ready for it. I think that this is a huge tell that they're saying, hey, bad stuff is coming from across the border. Mexico, Canada, that busy border in Detroit, that's a huge thing for the auto industry. And if you put these in there, that is a whole ripple effect. You have to talk about how the tariffs are collected, all the banks, the importers, exporters. This is a big deal for them. And so I think that this month is just a response to, hey, whoa, pump the brakes. We're not going to be able to process all of this, and we're not going to be able to handle this. And that's going to cause a harm in growth, maybe loss of jobs. So I think that's part of the reason for this 1 month.
You know, I know that many people and economists hold differing views on the president's tariffs, but I think it's also important to remember he used tariffs a lot during his first term, and inflation was only 1.4% when he left office. So why do we always get the scare tactics of inflation, 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 when at least the last time around it didn't actually increase it that much?
Right. Well, I mean, the first time around, we only had tariffs on China, and they were very targeted. They were on a narrow, category of goods and services. And at the same time, we also had tax cuts. Chinese companies chose to eat a lot of those, and they put countering taxes on some of our goods. This time around, we're talking about 25% taxes on Canada and Mexico, 20% on Canada, on China rather. That was 10% and 10%. Reciprocal tariffs soon, 10% tariffs on certain energy goods. This is a much broader tariff program, and it's on many more nations, on many more goods and services that we use. So I mean, that's the difference, and there will be a difference. I mean, we see it already in the way the market's reacting. It's going to raise prices for consumers. It's going to cause a lot of uncertainty. So it is different now than it was then.
Yeah, so Tim, I mean, in addition to delaying the auto tariffs, the White House at least seemed to open the door yesterday to potentially dealing with agricultural tariffs on a case-by-case basis, which really could be very beneficial to American consumers when they go to the grocery store and, of course, to our farmers. How do you think that plays out?
Well, think about what's going on in the agricultural sector of this economy. We've got an egg crisis going on here. That's hitting people $5 to $10 per dozen. And guess where we would get eggs if we, as Secretary Brooke Rollins said we need to do, is maybe think about importing eggs into this country. That's going to come probably from Canada. So if you think about this, you're playing all this 3D chess of what's this going to look like. But you also got to look at the oil. Think about that. That was also talked about, easing that 10% additional tariff on that from Canada, because all that oil comes down from Canada. We send it there, they refine it, they send it back to us through the pipeline. And that's a huge thing at the pump. That could be 20 to 40 cents per gallon extra if these things are not eased. So I think that there's some caution in the administration. I probably think that's a good thing at this point.
Yeah, so Peter, I mean, one of the things that I note is that, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said he's unwilling to lift Canada's retaliatory tariffs. But we've got to remember we're dealing with two different tariffs, I would say, strategies here. One is, I want you to do something about the border tariffs. And the other one is, you are not treating us fairly. Your tariffs on our automobiles, if you're Europe or someplace else in India, so we're dealing with reciprocal and or border tariffs, and all of them are adding up. Canada, I don't see where they get the leverage here.
Well, a huge part of the auto industry in the U.S. depends upon, Canadian goods and car parts to make those items. So we do rely on them to a large extent in that regard. I mean, the whole Canada thing is a little bit strange. Last year, 21,000 pounds of fentanyl were seized at the U.S.-Mexico border, just over 40 pounds at Canada. So a lot of the reasons for this are a little bit questionable. I'm not exactly sure what the end game is here, other than maybe trying to make Canada the 51st state. But it seems strange that the approach towards Canada is what we would expect the president the way we would expect the president to act towards, say, North Korea. It's very unusual.
Be very interesting. I see that the Canadian Prime Minister is taking American alcohol and liquor off their store shelves. Not sure how long Canadians will put up with that. Tim Descher, Peter Earle, thanks for joining us today.